Good morning. Welcome back to Mae Sot, Thailand. It is Monday, May 18th, and I'm just heading out for a walk and going to the big Robinson department store here in Mae Sot. I think as of yesterday, a new rule came into effect that big shopping malls are allowed to open again. So they all opened yesterday on Sunday, and I didn't want to go on Sunday because I figured there would be huge crowds on the first day. And I assumed there would be some kind of measures for tracking people as they go in and out, and they probably wouldn't have the systems figured out yet. There would be problems or kinks in the systems. And from the articles I saw online, that's exactly what happened. There were huge crowds, big lineups. And in Bangkok anyway, they had to scan, as you entered the shopping mall, you had to use your phone and scan a QR code, or that would take you to a website, or you had to download an app. You had to do something where they could track you going into the mall and leaving, and they had to have your phone number. You know, just all this safety things. If there happens to be a COVID-19 infection case, you know, then they can see who that person met and where they're staying and do all that kind of thing. So I thought I would wait until at least one day passed and they could work out all the kinks in the systems. So anyway, I'm heading there today to see what's going on. Right behind me, by the way, is the backside of my hotel. I'm very rarely here, so I don't often see it from this angle, but I think my room is, yeah, right there, the one with the open screen. The window is open and you can just see the screen there, but that's my room up on the third floor. As you can see from that angle, it is a bit of an older hotel. It's pretty worn on the outside, and a lot of the fixtures on the inside are kind of worn out and not working that well anymore. You know, it's kind of a vintage hotel, which is why the price is relatively low. And that's also a reason I really like it. I like these older vintage hotels because the facilities may not be that modern or even working sometimes, but in exchange for that, you do tend to get a lot of space. The rooms tend to be larger in these older hotels. Modern hotels may have modern fixtures and they can be sleek and shiny, but they're very tiny rooms for the most part. And sometimes I don't mind having a bit of space to spread out in. Oh, check this out. Oh, one thing, I'm walking to the mall by a different route through the city. I've never gone down this street before, and I'm heading to another street that takes me about 2 kilometers to the shopping mall. That's how far away it is. And I also picked a new street for that. So I'm going through the city in a totally new area. I've never been here before. So we'll see what interesting sights I come across. And I just came across one right away. Check this out. Hello. There's the green guest house, which I had no idea was here. Look at that. It looks very nice. And it looks like they rent by the day, the week, or the month. Hello.
Long time no guests, so
Right, no guests.
I will clean later. You have to. No.
Okay. Oh, that's very nice.
We have sheet, bed sheets and pillow.
Okay.
Hot shower.
Does the refrigerator work?
Work.
Yeah.
Now we stop.
Yeah, of course. No guests.
People. No people.
Right, right.
So take out the sit on.
Right. Okay. Well, there you go. That's why you always walk around down new streets if you can, because you always come across new things that you didn't know about. So I had no idea that guest house was there. Had I known it was there, I might have moved in quite a bit earlier. Though I'm not sure it would have been possible though, because, before I continue the story, check out what I'm walking by right now. There's a bridge heading over, kind of a river heading through Mesot. I saw it on Google Maps, so I knew I'd be crossing over this river. So it's not a lot of water flowing through it, so it looks more like a pond than a river. Oh, there's more water on this side. Oh, look at that. We got some fish down there. So I don't know if you'd really call this a river. It's more like a, it's completely covered in cement on all sides. So kind of a drainage canal or something like that. Anyway, I was just saying that I might not have been able to move in there before because the woman who runs the place was understandably quite concerned about my history vis-a-vis the coronavirus. There is this general sense in Thailand that foreigners are more at risk than Thai people. So she wanted to make very sure that I had not just come from a hotspot country, somewhere in Europe or even from Canada. And she asked me about my travel history, and I told her that I had been in Myanmar and Thailand only for quite a few months, and I hadn't been in Canada for over a decade. And she never seemed completely satisfied with my answers. You could tell she was quite reluctant to rent to a foreigner, such as myself. She has 2 Thai guests staying there right now, long term, but she hasn't had any foreign guests for months now. And I think she is willing to rent to me now, just because things are opening up. People aren't quite as concerned as they used to be. And as long as she believed me, that I've only been in Myanmar and Thailand over the past few months, she had to think it through, she had to listen to all my answers and do a lot of calculating. And then we discussed how much it would cost and that sort of thing. And she eventually came around to thinking that, it wouldn't be such a bad idea to rent a room to me. And she showed me the room. It's quite a large room on the main floor. Has air conditioning. Though she did say that the electricity was on a meter, and that would be in addition to the rent that I would pay. So I don't know how much that would cost. Yeah, the payment for the room was quite reasonable. If you pay by the month, it would probably work out to about half of what I'm paying at my current hotel. So that would work out quite nicely. Pay half as much, but then, have the option of an air conditioner. So I told her that almost definitely I would take the room, but I said I would I would think about it today. And she said that she would like a deposit because I've paid up at my hotel for a week now, so I can't move into that room for about a week. And that was kind of funny though. She can't help herself but be a kind of a small business operator, because she told me pretty clearly that they have had no guests in months. Like, no one has been staying there. No foreigners, certainly, and just the occasional Thai person. So I knew that there were no guests at all, and pretty much no possibility of getting guests. But when I said that I would be able to move in a week, which is kind of mid-month, and then she started saying, well, if you move in for 1 month, but you start in the middle of the month, that makes it more difficult for us. If you leave in the middle of a month, it says, how can we get a new guest to come in and pay for a month? So we probably have to charge you a little bit extra for that. You know, I could have pointed out to her that there are no guests. You know, I'm the only game in town at the moment. And she did say she wanted a deposit, which again was kind of interesting because she said she would need a deposit to guarantee the room because, you know, if I decided not to stay there, then, you know, she would lose out on the chance to rent it to another guest. And again, I could have pointed out that she just told me that there are no other guests, but still, that's how these things work. There was also some discussion about my lifestyle habits. She wanted to make sure that if I did any cooking, we're not talking about big, elaborate frying with smoke and flames and oil going in all directions. I don't even know why she mentioned it because I said nothing about cooking at all. But apparently the room she showed me was kind of meant for that. It's down on the main floor and it has a table and a refrigerator and enough space that cooking there is a possibility. So she brought it up first and I told her that, you know, if I did any cooking, we're just talking about noodles, you know, either pasta or instant noodles, and that's all. But we had to circle around that topic several times before she seemed happy with my answers. And as I said, she was mainly concerned about my travel history and making sure that I am not infected with the coronavirus. And she did seem to be working her way towards asking for a certificate of that, you know, like I would have to go and get a test done, which I'd be fine with doing if I knew how to do it or if it was even a possibility. You know, it would be an interesting experience to go get tested. But I don't even know if it's a possibility here in Mesot. And this is an interesting street that I'm walking down. I've already gone by several nice looking coffee shops that seem to be opening up. A couple of big hotels were here that I didn't know about before. And then a lot of local businesses, of course. And a quick Thailand update, I guess. I was just checking things in the news this morning. And as far as I can tell, there has not been a single COVID-19 related death in Thailand in about 10 days. So the last recorded death was on May 9th, which was 10 days ago. And there are very few new infections. In fact, I think in the whole country, in Thailand as a whole, they currently have only 116 confirmed cases of infection right now that they're monitoring in the hospitals or at home or wherever. But yeah, only 116 people right now are confirmed to be infected with the virus, which is a very low number compared to, you know, my home country of Canada and many other countries in the West and around the world. So that's a good thing. They're hardly recording any more infections either, you know, per day. At most, you're looking at 1 or 2 or 3. And in every case, as far as I can tell, they turn out to be Thai citizens, but who have just been repatriated. You know, they've returned from other countries around the world. And of course, all the repatriated Thais go into, you know, 14-day quarantine, and they're all being tested very thoroughly. And all of the new cases that are being recorded are coming from that group. Other news in Thailand is that they've extended the international flight ban for another month. So no international flights are allowed arriving in Thailand until now the end of June, which in a way seems counterintuitive because you'd think with so few infections in the country where things seem to be quite under control, you think there would be a movement towards opening up the country. But in a way, it's the opposite, because they're so happy with the low numbers, they want to make sure to keep it that way. So in a way, the extremely low numbers mean they're more likely to close the borders longer than if it were otherwise. Just kind of odd when you think about it, but makes sense. Sort of like a football team that hasn't lost a game all season. You know, they've got a perfect record. So in the final 2 games of the season, they work even harder to win those games because they're trying to protect their perfect record, you know, so they can finish the whole season undefeated. And that's kind of the atmosphere that I'm picking up on here in Southeast Asia. Cambodia, for example, has 0 cases of coronavirus right now. There are no active cases in the whole country at all. And that's pretty incredible. I think the numbers in Vietnam are also very, very low. Yet all these countries want to keep it that way. So they're being very careful about who they let into the country. And basically that means nobody gets into the country except for repatriated citizens. As for a personal life update, there isn't that much to report. I've done quite a bit of research online in terms of what laptop I should buy next. I'm making some progress there, but now that I'm learning more and more about how to use my phone to do everything, it doesn't feel as urgent as it used to. So I'm gonna kind of take my time with that. I don't have to buy a computer today or even next week or the week after. You know, I can make sure I figure out exactly what I need and get the laptop that will best suit me. If money were not an object, then of course it would be very easy. I think I know exactly which computer I'd get right now if I wasn't concerned about the price. But I have found out that if you start thinking about video editing and you're looking for the specifications and the components that people say you need for video editing, then the price of that computer rises very quickly and soon gets way out of reach. I mean, even if I were willing to pay that much for a premium laptop like that, it doesn't make a lot of sense because the poor thing would be banging around inside of a backpack or maybe even on a bicycle. So, you know, it's not like it would be sitting in a clean office all the time and not moving. It's going to be banged around quite a bit. So spending a huge amount of money on a laptop, to me, seems like you're taking quite a risk. So it's better to lower your expectations and not spend quite so much because the computer could easily get damaged or stolen. All right, I think I've joined up with one of the main roads, and I think Robinson Department Store is somewhere near here. Time for a Google map check. It turns out that I'm nowhere near Robinson Department Store yet. It's quite a long ways away. It's further than I thought. Whew. Just passing by an interesting temple though. I'll flip the GoPro around and show you what I'm looking at. And I'm looking at some kind of a Rooster Temple. We have a lot of these on the outside wall. And then a couple of quite large ones at the entrance to the temple. Wow. And then down there's quite the menagerie. When I was speaking to the woman at the guest house, One thing she did ask me about is whether I'd be more interested in an actual house, because this was sort of centered around all the cooking discussion, and she thought, you know, if I wanted to stay a long time and I wanted to do a lot of cooking, it might be better for me to rent an entire house rather than a room. And I've considered that. I did a little bit of looking online to see what it would cost to rent an actual house here, but I didn't make much progress there. And one thing I found out is that most of the houses I did see were quite far away, and she said the same thing. She said she had a house available for rent, but it was quite far away from here, and I prefer to stay kind of in the heart of Mesod. I like being in the mix if I can. I don't like being far away. And speaking of that, I'm still following a lot of the stranded foreigners overseas. And there's the couple that call themselves Jumping Places. I think the woman is from Brazil, and I'm not quite sure where the man is from. But their YouTube channel is called Jumping Places. And they were stranded on the island of Palawan in the Philippines near El Nido. And they've been staying in a few different places there. They were staying in a kind of a nice upscale hotel. Then they moved into a little bungalow style house. And just recently they moved into another resort, which I guess was cheaper and offered better value. But it's set back a ways from El Nido and up on the hillside. And they have access to a really big kitchen there and can do a lot of cooking. Since they have time on their hands, they started making a lot of videos about food. So they're kind of turning their YouTube channel into a cooking channel, since they can't do any traveling right now. But for me, I don't know if I would be happy in a place like that, just because it's so far away from downtown anywhere. It's a lot nicer than a tiny room in a hotel, of course, since they have, you know, a big resort bungalow with beautiful views and all that kind of thing. But I would even prefer, you know, just a tiny room, if that tiny room is located right downtown El Nido in the heart of things. That's just where I would prefer to hang out. I guess because I'm on my own. So being all by yourself in a big bungalow way up in the mountains is not that much fun. And if you want to go shopping, you've got to go on a long journey all the way into town and back again. But yeah, they're in a beautiful spot though. That is for sure. I keep calling this place Sleepy Mesod, but when you go out for a walk down roads like this, you start to realize it is not sleepy at all. This is a busy place. But I guess that's the same for any town in Thailand, you know? That's just the way life is over here. And it's particularly that way if you prefer to walk everywhere. And as a pedestrian, you're fighting the traffic most of the time. So I hit the main road again, and I should be creeping up on Robinson for sure. It's just up ahead of me here. By walking here, I might have shot myself in the foot though, because I'm going to be quite hot when I arrive, hot and sweaty. And they're sure to take my temperature before they'll let me in. So I have to start thinking of some strategies here for cooling down before I get there. We made it. This is Robinson up ahead of me. Big parking area here for motorcycles and then cars over there. A short lineup of people waiting to get in, which tells me they're being processed in some way. We'll have to see how they're processing people to go in. So 1 meter spacing in the lineup. And it looks like they're limiting the total number of people to 3,700. And there's something here about scanning a QR code. I'm going to see if I can just sign into their book instead. It looks like everyone has to sign in with a name and phone number. Okay, thank you. So here we are in the heart of modern civilization, back inside the shopping mall. Every time I come to one of these places, I can't help but think of all the zombie movies where they make some social commentary about how even the zombies end up just sort of stumbling towards the shopping mall, because that's what they're used to doing when they were alive, you know? And so even when they're dead and now a zombie, their instincts take over and they just sort of stumble towards the shopping mall, even though they don't even know what they're going to do when they get there. So here I am, a shopping zombie in the shopping mall. Yeah, I've never been inside here before, but yeah, it looks big and modern, lots of different shops. I'm keeping my eyes open for a bubble milk tea, or I might become adventurous and get something else. Yeah, now that I'm here, to be honest, I don't really have any reason to be here. I just thought I'd come out here as a destination, you know? And this is how some places have the tables set up. It's like the world has become a world for one, because they only have one chair on one side and the other side of the table is X'd out. And if you are two people, you could still sit together, but one would have to sit here, the other would have to sit there, and then they have the social distancing barrier between you. So it's a world made for single people like myself all of a sudden. And check out this lonely little table over here. As if it's not insulting enough that there's just seating for one person, you get the big red X to drive home the point that you are sitting there all by yourself. Well, I think I will try this place out for a pearl milk tea. Give myself a treat for coming all the way out here. I've got my bubble milk tea, or they call it pearl milk tea. But every time I get one of these, I keep forgetting the problem of the mask. How do you drink it? I mean, here inside the mall, you're required to wear a mask. But in order for me to drink my bubble milk tea, I have to kind of at least remove my mask partially. Because, yeah, it's not working, is it? It's pretty funny. Okay, that is it for my Robinson department store adventure. Turned out to be a worthwhile trip because they had a big grocery store, supermarket in there, and I stocked up on some of my staples like instant coffee, creamer, and spaghetti sauce, things like that, all in my knapsack right now. And it was just interesting to see how everything is operating in there, all these social distancing rules. And I didn't really understand the check-in procedure, exactly what you were supposed to do. All I ended up doing was sign my name in a book, and that was it. Though they had all these displays for QR codes everywhere. But I didn't know what I was supposed to do with that, so I didn't do anything. But when I was leaving, it looked like I had to scan the QR code in order to exit. It was part of the exit procedure. So I did it this time, just to see what happens. So I scanned it with my phone. You just open up your camera and the camera automatically scans the code brings you to a website, and at this website they run you through a survey about the conditions in the store, whether it was clean and there was hand sanitizer, and whether social distancing rules are being observed by the staff or not. And then you are expected to enter your phone number and agree to certain conditions. I didn't read the conditions that carefully, but it was something like, if in the future they discover that there was a person in the store who was infected while you were there at the same time, then you agree to have them contact you and request a hospital follow-up visit and all this kind of stuff. So it was all based on, giving your consent to that. So I went through that whole process. But then as I was leaving, there was also these tables where you could write down your name and a phone number. And the man there, when he saw that I had the QR code scanned on my phone, he waved me away. So apparently it was a choice. You could either do the QR code or you could just sign your name in the book, one or the other. I understood the way it was laid out. I thought you had to do the QR code in order to exit the shopping mall. But I guess that wasn't the case. You could do that, or you could just sign the book and head out. It's funny though how all of us become so eagle-eyed all of a sudden when it comes to all these rules, because I couldn't help but notice that for the lineup for the checkout process, there were, red pieces of tape on the floor specifying 1 to 2 meters distance between people. And if you didn't stand behind the red line, they had all these guards there would come running up to you and tell you to move back, keep your distance, which is all well and good. But when you go to sign out, they actually had a series of books on the same table. So there'd be 2 books like right beside each other on the table. So even though all the people checking out were very careful to keep, at least 6 feet or so between the other people, when they had to actually fill out the book, they were forced to stand shoulder to shoulder and be practically touching while they're filling out the actual sign-out book. So, I don't really care that much, but I did notice this, that they enforce these strict social distancing policies, but then at the most important point, when you fill out the book with your contact information, the system forces you to stand in a tight group with all these other people. So that was kind of weird, But what are you going to do in a modern city to keep everybody 2 meters away from every other human being forever? I mean, that's a tough thing to do. So I think you got to be flexible to a certain extent. So I'm out in the hot sun again, and I'm going to make my way back towards my hotel. And I'll probably stop off at that guest house and confirm with the woman that I'll be moving in there. Seems like a pretty wise thing to do. And I need a change anyway, I need something different, a new experience of some kind. So I think that'll be kind of fun moving into that place. And it'll be half the price. So that's a big advantage. By the way, this is the screen you get at the end after you've checked out from Thai Chana website. And basically I ticked all the boxes that said the floors were clean, everybody was wearing masks, and there was soap everywhere, and the spacing between the tables was good. I didn't see anything that contradicted these points. So I was reading some comments online from people saying that individual stores also had their own QR code system set up that would bring you to their website, where you had to go through the same process and enter your phone number. And people recommended not doing that because these stores would then keep your phone number and start bombarding you with spam from that store, advertisements. But they said if the check-in and check-out process used this website called Thai Chan or Thai Chana, they said it was okay to do that. It was kind of I don't understand it. I don't know who runs this website, but even if you leave your phone number there, you're not going to be hit with a lot of marketing afterwards. So that's what I did, just for the experience. Funny thing, this mask, I can breathe better in it, but it's quite tight, and it actually really hurts my nose after a while. It's pulling in on my nose, feels kind of bruised. Finding that guest house this morning kind of made me think of this little piece of pop psychology that I have rolling around in my head lately. You can tell me if you've had similar thoughts. And this idea starts with finding this guest house, which in general, the room that they showed me at the price that they told me, assuming I got the price right, is actually much better than where I've been staying. So I can start to think, wow, I wish I had moved into this place much earlier. And in a way, you can have this sense of regret, you know, that you didn't do it earlier. And that sense of regret can be so strong that you don't even bother doing it, because now my moving from the hotel into this guest house, into a better room perhaps at half the price, it forces me to admit that I should have done it earlier and that I made a mistake by staying in the first hotel as long as I did. You know what I mean? It's almost like if you've made a poor choice or a wrong decision, you end up digging in deeper and staying committed to that choice, just because changing your mind now, you have to admit to yourself that you made a mistake. Does that make any sense? And I was thinking of this in broader terms, you know, just to do with happiness and unhappiness. I've noticed that in people, there can be a habit of becoming dependent on their unhappiness. They can be unhappy about their life or their situation for so long that they don't even want to change it anymore, because they become almost scared of happiness. Because let's say you've been unhappy for the last 10 years, and if you just keep on being unhappy, then you just accept it as normal. You know, that is your condition. But if you happen to make some changes in your life, and those changes actually make you happy, then you're filled with this wave of regret about, why didn't I do this sooner? You know what I mean? It's like, now you suddenly have to acknowledge that you could have been happy for the past 10 years if you'd only made these changes. And I've noticed in people that there's a tendency to stay with the unhappiness just because it's familiar to them, and they don't even try to change it. Because if they do change it and they successfully make changes in their life and become happy, it forces them to acknowledge that all of that unhappiness in their life for the last 10 years was just wasted time, and they didn't actually need to be unhappy all that time. They could have made the changes 10 years ago and been happy, and nobody really wants to admit that to themselves. Does that make any sense? In terms of my other shopping quests, my trip to Robinson was not that successful. I mentioned in an earlier video that during my life overseas, I seemed to be constantly on a quest to find little objects that I need. You know, particularly when I adopt a new hobby like shooting video or something, suddenly you need all these little things, or you think you need them. You need this type of battery, and you need that cable, and you need this adapter, and maybe you need this gizmo or that gizmo. Anyway, I always seem to be shopping for something, and I can never find these things. They're always so difficult to find. And in recent weeks, I've been on a quest to find ice cube trays and Scotch tape in a little household dispenser. And people told me that if I went to Robinson, I could find both of these items easily. I guess I didn't know where to look because I couldn't find them. I looked everywhere I could think of, and I walked out of Robinson with no ice cube trays and no Scotch tape. So the hunt for those two objects continues. Turns out my route to Robinson and back takes me right by the computer store where they fixed my portable hard drive from my laptop. There it is right there. I don't know if my pop psychology lesson was clear, but I think if I had to say it quite simply, it is that people can become dependent on their unhappiness and kind of committed to it, and they're unwilling to make changes in their life to become happy, because when they do that and it's successful, they have to admit that they could have been happy all along if only they'd had the courage to make those changes earlier. I don't know, is that an obvious thing or is that profound? I don't really know. Another lesson I learned is that I need more exercise. I really do. I've been so lazy lately. This shopping mall is about 2 kilometers away, so round trip, plus, you know, some detours and walking around the mall. Call it 5 kilometers total. 5 kilometers walking, and my legs are kind of wobbly. Only a 5 kilometer walk, and I can feel it in my legs. That's not good. Gonna have to work some more exercise into my day, I think. Some more walking, at the very least. And I bought some snacks. That's kind of cool. I don't really know what they are. Some kind of pastry dumpling with something tasty in the middle. When I get back to the first hotel, I'm going to make a cup of coffee and have some of these snacks and find out what's inside them. But first, I have to stop off at this new guest house and see if we can come to a solid understanding about when I'm going to move in. Well, as promised, I'm back at the first hotel, enjoying a cup of instant coffee. It's brand new fresh coffee from Robinson department store. And I have my snacks over here. It actually has some Thai writing on the top. Probably says what the snacks are. I don't know if that is in focus, but that is the label on these snacks. And they're actually quite heavy. A lot of heft to them. So let's see what's going on here. I'm sure I've had these before. You know, they're not that unusual, but very thick, dense, creamy sort of material on the inside. Yeah, very good. So, gonna have a few of those along with my cup of coffee. I did stop at the other guest house called the Green Guest House, and it was it had a happy ending. Everything is fine. I will be moving in there in a few days, but it was predictably confusing to get to the final arrangements. The main reason was that the woman running the place, who owns the place, she seemed a little bit unwilling to start a month in the middle of the month. She was more comfortable in paying for a full month as, you know, the month of June or the month of May, rather than starting in the middle. So I thought I had the perfect solution for her, because I'll be moving in on like May 24th, I guess. And that leaves 1 week in the month of May. So I said to her at the beginning, when I went back there, okay, I can pay you for 1 week. We'll finish off the month of May. I'll pay for the last week of May. And then, you know, if we get to that point, I can pay for the month of June in total. And That should keep it nice and simple and clear, I thought. We can start on the first of the month, pay for a whole month, and then that should make her happy, makes me happy. I mean, the place is so economical that even if I don't stay for the whole month, even if I only stay for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, it won't really matter that much to me. I could just leave anyway, and it won't matter that I paid for the full month. But to my surprise, when I made that suggestion, it just confused her completely. She got out a piece of paper and a pen, and she was writing down the dates and doing all these calculations, and eventually she just gave up and said, no, that's too complicated. I can't figure that out. So why don't we just call it 1 month from May 24th until whatever it is, June 23rd. Let's call that 1 month. And then I said, sure, it's fine with me. You know, one way or the other, I don't really care. I did this whole 1 week in May, 1 full month of June. I did all that for her because I thought that's what she wanted to do. But it turns out that was even more confusing for her. So we are now starting in the middle of May, going until the middle of June. So we'll see how it works. As I said, it's much more economical than this place. I think I'll end up getting a lot more than I'm getting here, but I'm paying less than half of what I'm paying here. So that'll work out all right. There could be all kinds of gotchas at this place. I don't know yet. You know, it's actually kind of taking a risk to pay for a whole month in advance, because there could be all kinds of problems at this place. There's no way you can anticipate everything. And I noticed when I went back there a second time that it really is kind of a junky environment. There's junk everywhere, piles of debris that have collected over the years. Not garbage, but stuff. Piles of old bicycles, old motorcycles, old furniture, old household appliances, gardening supplies. Who knows? There's just piles of stuff everywhere. It is not exactly manicured and pristine garden atmosphere, you know. And of course, I'm not going to get the gorgeous ocean views that people like jumping places and the delightful travelers are getting in El Nido. I'm going to be in this sort of very claustrophobic setting inside this courtyard of this hotel with no particular views of anything, but I don't mind that at all. It'll be absolutely fine with me. So that's the end of today's adventures. Pretty good day. Headed to Robinson, got some shopping done, got some more coffee, more spaghetti, got some snacks, found a new place to move to, you know, in less than a week's time. So that should be kind of interesting. So that's it for today, and I'll see you in the next video.